resin prints that won't keep failing Uncle Jessy with a big red dog turd, 3D printer motherboards having bad solder joints and almost catching fire, all this and more. PrintFix Friday, episode 53. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you love taking a look at fails and how to fix them, and you just love 3D printing, 3D scanning, and all the things that we do here at 3D Musketeers, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed if you aren't. We got a lot of awesome fails coming up for you today, but we are not going to do a glossary in this video. You can use the chapters if you want to skip around. Thanks in part to today's sponsor, our supporters. Thank you guys to our Patreon and YouTube channel members. You guys make videos like this possible, and pretty much unanimously, y'all said get rid of the glossary, so we're getting rid of it. But if you do want to join the elite group of Musketeers, click the links down in that description and join our Patreon or YouTube channel members at the $5 tier and higher. You can get your name hanging out in the video. And at the $10 tier and higher, you can come hang out in our Discord and have a lot of fun with us. But there's going to be another sponsor in the video, so I don't want to go too much on this one. Like, subscribe, all the things. Let's get into the fails. First up, we got a fail from a fan, actually. Their name is Fabian. They're based out of Chile, which is actually pretty darn cool to be working with someone from Chile. So Fabian, thank you for that. It's a really cool opportunity to see that we are impacting people throughout the world. Honestly, it was pretty cool. And no offense to you, but it was really cool to see your face when I popped on the call. You're like, oh, it's him. Yes, of course it's me. For those that don't know, I respond to the emails that you guys send to youtube@3dmusketeers.com. And if you do want to set up a meeting for whatever reason, there's a link right on our website to do so. And that books time directly in my calendar, so we can help you make awesome. It was just really cool to, see him be a little surprised that it's not some shop lackey. It's me. But Fabian has been dealing with some problems. He's got a model here that's not doing great, and he tried it quite a few times with errors almost consistently the same way every single time. And it's not in the consistency that you would think. It's not happening at the same layer. It's not happening at a time thing. It's just consistent in the way that it's failing, not where it is failing. He's getting layers that aren't printing and then some tearing issues and some of the layer prints, but the rest of it doesn't. This one stumped me. And I should have known better, right? Had him check all of his settings. Settings look pretty darn good to me. And even went to a good buddy of mine, Mr. Chris Catlett, who's kind of an expert in resin. I'm like, Chris, what the hell am I missing? All of his settings are good. Everything here looks good to me. He's in Chile. For those who don't know, Chile is on the other side of the equator from me, which means it's the winter for them. It's 9 degrees centigrade where he's printing. It's a little cold there, which means your models don't look a whole lot like this, and up looking a whole lot like that. So how did Fabian solve this? He turned on the heat. Absolutely turned on the heat, and the model looked amazing. And he cheated. And I love this cheat. And I honestly, it's like one of those, if you got the hack, do it. They used a reptile heating pad to heat the chamber of their printer. Now, hopefully in the future, I can get a politician over to Fabian. We are making some revisions to that. So if you guys do want to follow along with the politician revisions, make sure to head over to our Patreon and join at the $10 tier or higher, where you can hang out. I was actually working on it, another new revision, just the other night live in our Discord. This is one of those things that I did not think to ask, because in my world, it's hot as hell, and it's not something that I deal with. Even in the winter, 9 degrees centigrade, my state is losing its mind more than normal. But 9 degrees centigrade, Florida does not know what the hell to do. But for him, this is normal. So we ended up turning on the heat in the room to get the room up to about 22°C. Then he decided to add a heater into the printer itself, and I mean, the proof is in the print. I mean, look at that. They're gorgeous. The prints are absolutely gorgeous. So I am so happy that we were able to help, but I feel kind of like an idiot for missing something that is so obvious, but not something that I bothered to ask. This is going to be an upcoming video, by the way, what to ask when someone comes to you with a print fail, because had I gone through my own checklist of what temperature is it? Are you dealing with fluctuating temperatures? We would have figured this out from the beginning. When I told Chris Catlett that this was at 9°C, he was impressed that it printed at all. So, A+. But yeah, glad we got this one solved. We've been going about this for like 2 weeks, just trying to figure this out the back and forth. But I'm so glad they're back up and printing because this is for an architecture project. And, well, this stuff can get frustrating if it continues to fail over and over. We went through UV tools. I did a live work with them where, you know, I had them show me their lychee slicer profiles. Then we went to UV tools. Everything looked clean. I could not figure it out. And sometimes it is about asking those questions that seem like the answer is obvious, but might not be. And of course, also consider where the person is located in the world. That one bit me in the butt. But I'm glad that they're back up and running. That makes me happy. So, Fabian, good luck. Keep on printing. Next up, got my buddy Uncle Jessy, who I'm going to be seeing at Earth, hopefully. Trying to get that one sorted, but looks like he's coming to Earth. And I'm excited because that means I get to see him when we're planning to see each other, not randomly at a sushi restaurant in Tampa. Well, let's take a look here.
So I'm just getting to the studio and I have to show you something just insane. These are a bunch of balloon dogs that I've been printing, and this, I don't know what this monstrosity is.
It's a blob of doom. It's a blob of doom. That's an impressive one.
Insane. I mean, that's all up in there.
Now let's check the technique. Check the technique.
This up to, I don't know, 250. You're gonna make my life a little easier in trying to remove
Good
this
technique.
fucking
Good
cage.
technique. You gotta remove the covers. Get things out of the way. That's good technique.
It's like welded.
It's welded because it's full of plastic.
It's starting to ooze, which means I should be able to start wiggling this. Come on.
Oh, it's always so nerve-wracking. There it is. Satisfying.
This is one big old blob of filament.
It's a dog turd.
And I've still got more on there. Okay, pulled that one off. Let's see if I can.
That is somewhat good form. Be careful to use metal instruments around your hot end. Not because of the thermal conductivity, but because of the electrical conductivity. It is best to use a pair of tweezers or even a pair of pliers that are ceramic in that they won't transfer electricity. So if you do, for some reason, touch both wires on your heater or short your heater, nothing will happen with a pair of ceramic pliers versus a pair of metal pliers where you might kill your motherboard. But yeah, he's been doing it for long enough. I have faith.
Pull this off. Oh, there we go. Oh.
That's impressive, okay? This thing got way the heck up there, all covering the heat break as well as the entire heat block. In an instance like this, given that Uncle Jessy is doing this for likely a print farm business, because you don't make that many of those dogs if you're not gonna sell them, I don't think, I would just be replacing the hot end. It's not worth it to me to go through this effort. It'd be better to put a bunch of them to the side when you need it, and then when it's absolutely necessary, go ahead and clean all of them at once. That way you're doing just one day of cleaning or a couple of hours worth of cleaning rather than futzing around with one at a time. It's the way I've always done it, but that's why I also say keep spares around.
Holy moly. This is like an operation, but for 3D printers. Gosh.
Gotta be careful of those wires, man. The wires on your hot end are really delicate, especially those on your thermistor. You're talking real thin wire that even just looking at it the wrong way will cause it to break. So when you are doing this, make sure everything is hot. And in the instance that it's not, get a hairdryer, get a heat gun. Do not get a blowtorch, and just slowly heat things up to soften that plastic so you're not ripping on the wires as well. Not bad so far. Good and clean. Gotta love it.
Well, apparently I didn't have a silicone sock.
You might have actually had a silicone sock. Check your red dog turd and see if it's in there. I do believe these printers come with them stock. If they don't, put silicone socks on everything. As we've talked about on this channel many times before, silicone socks are cheap insurance. It would protect your block from stuff like this. Now, it wouldn't stop the plastic from going all over the place, but it would stop it from getting red goop all over your heater block, because this is going to be a pain in the butt to clean off. And if you don't clean it off, it will eventually find its way off of your hot end in the middle of one of your parts, where it is going to make a mess, and you're going to have to reprint it. And you're going to hate yourself for not cleaning it off. So always make sure you clean off your hot ends when you have blobs of doom.
Which would have definitely helped us. But this right here, this is a keeper.
That's definitely a keeper. That's absolutely a keeper. 100% would put that in my cabinet of fail. Absolutely would do that. We've been through this multiple times on the channel. It happens. This is why I always recommend, if you're not going to be around your printers, he's got a farm, right? Can't always be around the machines. At least put a Wise Cam or some sort of webcam with smart plugs. So if you do see a machine start to fail for some reason, kill the power to it remotely for 20-30 seconds, then turn it back on to allow itself to cool down properly. And at least then you're reducing the amount of work you have to do. The print's already failed, right? Just accept that fact. But you're reducing the amount of work that you have to do when you have that failure. Had he checked in maybe an hour into the failure and saw that little blob of doom happening, he could have killed that print before it engulfed the entire hot end and could have potentially caused some damage. Now, thankfully, it appears the printer's totally fine, which is good. I like that. I'm happy for Uncle Jessy there, because printers are a pain in the butt to work on, especially some of these Ender style machines. Now, those are Elegoo Neptunes. I don't know if they're the 2s, the 2Ss, or the 3s. As I've talked about in previous videos, in fact, just Wednesday's video, I really want to take a look at that Elegoo Neptune 3. I think that printer is going to punch way above the $210 price class that it sits at. But everyone's going to deal with this at least one time in their life of 3D printing. And if you haven't dealt with it and you're telling yourself, well, I've never dealt with that, be on the lookout. You're next. But in all seriousness, you will deal with this at some point in your 3D printing career. That's why I prefer to have spares on hand. So if I do decide to manhandle it a little bit, not really care about the broken wires, know that I'm going to end up replacing parts anyways. My goal is to get it off the machine, get the new parts in, and get the machine running as quickly as possible to reduce downtime. Because time, as we all know, is money. This one comes from my buddy Peter Sassman. If you don't know him, go check him out. He does Scent VR. In fact, his stuff was shown on Linus Tech Tips. We'll card to that video so you guys can take a look. He's basically a rock star. For those that like Linus. This is a fun problem. Not exactly a print fail, but a fail nonetheless. And he is a patron of ours, and he put it in the channel. So I thought that we could take a look at this. This is on a 5-year-old 3D printer. These are cracked solder joints, and he was having issues with intermittent failure of the heating systems. We got a bit of a problem here, but we also got a little toasty. And I don't know, of course, what's on the other side of the board, but given how large these connections are, I'm guessing it's power plug. Whether it's power out to the printer or power into the printer, you don't want cracked solder joints there. Honestly, these look like cold solder joints too. If you guys do want to see a tutorial on soldering, I am certainly not an expert, but I'll do my best. I've been soldering for well over a decade, and I still kind of suck at it, but I know a cold solder joint when I see one. And this kind of ashiness that you see on it is because they did not adequately heat both the pad and the pin. And if you don't do that, you don't get a good bond, which causes this problem. You can see this has been going on for a while. We've got a lot of heat buildup here. It's actually somewhat damaged the board. It's time to get a new board, buddy. I mean, minimally, yes, you can just go ahead and, reflow the joints. But I'd be worried that your board is already compromised from the excess heat that is being involved in here. And if he didn't catch this problem, this is good that it happened to Peter of all people, because he does kind of know his way around soldering and circuit boards and all of that, but it's still dangerous as hell. This is why when companies use cold solder joints, we do recommend, hey, take a look at your motherboards, make sure they're okay, and if they're not, go redo some of the connections. There's no shame in that. I would rather you spend 20 minutes reflowing every one of the solder connections on a printer motherboard than you spend 2 days, 3 days, 4 days with an insurance company going through why your house caught fire and how somehow it wasn't due to gross negligence on your part. So I'm glad that everything is okay with Peter, but we will also link to Haptic Soul and everything that Peter is doing down in the description below. But he's not paying me to say any of this, and neither is our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. Sometimes these segues just really work well for me. But if Peter would have outsourced his work to 3D Musketeers, he would have paid a little bit more money, but wouldn't have dealt with problems like this, because we do run really awesome machines here like Prusa's. And that means we don't really have too many issues like this. We have issues, but none dealing with bad solder joints. When you look at some of these smaller printers, these cheaper printers, you can run into issues like this. So, bit of a trap for young gamers. But if you do want to support the work that we do here on the channel, go click the links in the description, grab a Patreon tier for as low as $1 a month, like, share, subscribe, comment, all the things the algorithm lords like to do. Let's get back into it. Update on my Elegoo Mars 2 Pro problems. I'm not sure if the right side of my screen is broken or what. Well, it ain't broken. It's got resin under the screen. And you've lost all control because there's really no way to fix this. Best of luck to you. So what has happened here? We have resin that has leaked out of the vat somehow, whether it was from a puncture, a spill, whatever it might be, and it has actually seeped between the LCD screen and the glass. That's bad news bears, because there's really no easy way to fix it. Yes, you can try to separate the LCD from the glass, try to clean it, but chances are you're gonna scratch your LCD panel. So yeah, there's no good way to look at this from my perspective. And this is your problem. They removed the tape from around the edge. These printers come with tape all around the screen, and that is there to keep resin from leaking under your screen. It's there for a reason. Don't remove it. And this individual is, unfortunately, paying the price. And yes, you can see maybe he'll get lucky and be able to use some IPA, maybe try to peel it apart, but yeah, it's pretty much worked. It's a shame because the screen otherwise looks like it's in pretty good condition. So honestly, and you got lucky because the ribbon cable's over here, so you can try to pry it apart over here. You might be okay. But just something to be aware of, because that can absolutely cause problems. Next up, we got a fan submission from one of our awesome Patreon supporters, Mad Cat USA, with a couple of print issues. What's going on here? This one is pretty easy. This is cooling. They don't have enough cooling, or they're moving too fast, which then in turn means not enough cooling, right? This is layer curling, and this is all on his interface layers, where your support material is attempting to hold the actual perimeters. Not only are we seeing some pretty hardcore bonding, and hey, look, I'm not here to judge anyone about what they like to do behind closed doors. We're also seeing some warping, and when you deal with warping like this, we need to look at things like your speeds and your cooling. Now, he is using an Ender 3, which notoriously don't have great cooling. If you're not using an aftermarket cooler with your Ender 3, you will be limited not by your hot end for speed, but by your ability to cool the layers. And if you go and you put down the plastic so fast, there's not enough time to solidify that layer before even PLA, when it's hot, does shrink and can warp a little bit. If you don't basically set it with the fan in place before it can warp, it's just gonna warp on you. But he's also got some issues with retraction, and again, a topic that we've covered here before, but it's ramming. So what we have going on is when the machine is pushing filament back into the hot end, I'm assuming back into the hot end, honestly. I don't know, the picture's not immediately clear enough for me to see if it is happening on the retraction or de-retraction, but normally this occurs on the de-retraction side. If you push the filament back in too fast, you end up dealing with a ramming issue. Now, he knows this, and he said he's tried decreasing the retraction. He's increased the retraction speed. The retraction speed is 50 millimeters per second out, and de-retraction at 25, and he's still getting these problems. So I would look at some other source of friction or backlash in your system. Now, this is the same Ender 3 as this print here. Now, he is using a dual gear extruder. He is using Capricorn tube, but as far as I can tell otherwise, the printer is relatively stock. So what does that mean for the part that we're looking at? It might just be that you got too much retraction for very little amounts of printing, because we can see when he looks at printing larger areas, it doesn't seem as bad, but we do definitely still have some artifacts. This might be a time where running a temp tower makes more sense, because a lot of temp towers also deal with retraction, bridging, and all those other issues. This one might be a multifaceted problem. I'd like to know the material that they're using, the temperature that it's being used at, and we didn't cover this one too much, unfortunately, because we moved quickly into this problem, which was the second thing that he had posted to ask for help on. And I feel bad because obviously I did not answer this one for him, but I would normally say that this is something that has to do with your ramming problems, but 50 out and 25 in, you should be okay. Could be everything from the PTFE tube is finally degrading, maybe a partial blockage of your nozzle, all the way to your filament's not hot enough, and it needs to spend a little bit more extra time in the hot end before it can be easily extruded. Multiple options here. This one also comes from our Discord. This is from one of our Patreon supporters. This is from Train HX3, maybe? This guy's awesome, but he is having some problems with his Prusa. Let's take a look at this. We have a pretty serious layer shift, as well as some kind of crazy settings, it looks like. So we're looking at his actual settings here. He's got the paint on supports. He's using 40% infill, a bunch of walls, and this is a sword that he is doing of the Kokiri for his daughter. And he has, of course, learned that if you print swords horizontally, they're quite a bit stronger than if you print them vertically, because as you know, with FDM 3D printing, it is weakest about the Z-axis. And while, yes, putting this thing vertical would remove the need for support material, it would make the part significantly weaker. So I totally understand laying it down like this, but it does complicate things because now, of course, you need to have support material. Now I asked him, hey, toss me the 3MF file, let me take a look at it, and sprinkle a little Salt Bay magic on there, and I love it because his response was, what magic did you cast? I'll let you know how it goes, and thank you. And my response was 14 years of experience. When you look at parts like this, you kind of know. And some of the things that he was doing wrong. One, all of these are custom settings. For reasons I don't understand, I run bone stock Prusa settings here for the actual printer itself. Sometimes I'll mess with the filament, and I definitely mess with the printer settings, but I don't save them as my settings. Either way, I took a look at his 3MF file and I made a bunch of changes to it. And you can see that this is his settings as they currently are, and they're not too bad. For me personally, I do not like my first layer to be anything other than 0.2. I consistently like to have my first layer the same height, because then when I'm looking at that first layer, I can know pretty much instantly, is my printer okay, or does it need attention? Because if it needs attention, I want to deal with it now, not 45 minutes into the print when it is failing. We can see he's got 6 top and bottom solids, 6 perimeters, extra perimeters if needed, vertical shell thickness, you know, all the good stuff that you want. But he does have thick bridges, and he also has detect thin walls turned off, but that's mainly because Arachne is turned on. And Arachne is perfect for this. I've generally been running Arachne pretty hard, but then I get this video. We have a printer that is jammed, and that one threw me for a loop because my settings are damn good, and I know they're damn good. But I failed to notice something, and I failed to ask a very important question. For the astute amongst you, you'll notice there are reflections of light coming from the background of this printer. The printer is in a damn enclosure, and he is printing with PLA in a sealed enclosure. That, my friends, generally speaking, is a recipe for disaster. Your chamber is going to get so hot that heat creep is going to be a problem. Even the wonderful Noctua fan, although not the hamburger Noctua, it's an all-black Noctua fan, the venerable Noctua, is not able to cool down your heatsink if your ambient temperature is high enough to soften your PLA. So I said, hey, just open the doors. I asked him about the materials. He's using some inland PLA, and I told him that I hate him for having a local micro center. We looked at the PTFE tube. He's running a Revo, so we looked at the Revo. All these other things that we could look at. And finally, even down to like extruder pressure and all of that. I didn't ask about the enclosure. So twice this week, I've made pretty fundamental mistakes because I didn't ask the right questions. Now, in my personal defense, I wasn't given the right information to succeed either. I was just given a failure without all of the possibilities that could be used to help me succeed. So I'm gonna call this one mostly my fault, partially their fault too, because it's my video and I can do things the way that I want. Okay, thanks. But yeah, he opened the door, reprinted it, and it worked perfectly. So, yeah. As dumb as that is, sometimes your enclosure can actually do more harm than good. But what won't do you any harm is making sure that you leave a like on this video, comment below, let me know what are your favorite questions to ask, whether it's yourself or others, when you're dealing with print failures, because I would love to compile a list. We can put together a comprehensive list of what questions you should be answering if you are asking for help, and what questions you should be asking if you are trying to help. Because a lot of these failures would have been solved a lot faster had I asked the right questions. And you know what? Part of this is being honest and saying, hey, I'm not perfect. Neither is anybody else. That's the way life goes sometimes. I appreciate you guys hanging out and getting this far in the video. Leave a comment down below, but stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Click the links in that description to support 3D Musketeers, get your name listed as one of the elite Musketeers, and be able to hang out with us, because every one of these fails was curated directly from our Patreon Discord, with a lot of them being directly from our patrons. Right below me will be the entire PrintFixFriday series, as you know and love it, and next to that will be the video from Wednesday, all about what good printers to recommend for the noobs. I will see you all down in the comments and in the next one. Take care.